Hello, hello, hello. Thank you very much for checking out Is This the Real Life? My name is Casey. That's Flash, of course. And hello to my cyber fam, 4 subscribers. Thank you very much. Tell your friends and your loved ones. Comment, like or dislike, and please subscribe. This was just going to be a Game of Thrones episode, but there were developments in the real world, so I decided to talk about that as well. Um, First thing and foremost, or whatever, is Game of Thrones. Everybody's on the Song of Ice and Fire tip these days, and that's okay because it's a good show. It's an entertaining show. I prefer the books myself. I know that's probably the snooty thing to say, but the books and the television show are definitely two different animals at this point. I prefer the books because just I don't know, it's a little bit better in my opinion. But the show is great too. Although I think it's sort of jumped the shark few seasons ago, but that's neither here nor there. My discussion on Game of Thrones in this video really isn't going to be on predictions or analysis of the episodes or anything, although I did hear a very intriguing theory while watching a show called Nerd Soup. I'll go ahead and link to it, of course, and there was a young lady named Marissa, I believe her name was, and she basically had this very intriguing theory that Arya will fulfill the role of Lady Stoneheart in the upcoming season or maybe next season, and that actually sounds very plausible to me. Lady Stoneheart was a character who did not make it into the television show from the books, but she is one of the more intriguing and popular characters. There's going to be a bunch of spoilers, so this is the spoiler you get. Spoiler alert. Lady Stoneheart is actually a zombified Catelyn Stark who takes over control of the Brotherhood Without Banners, the fire worshippers that the Hound is with this season. Arya being very filled with rage and anger, I guess, because she's killed a whole bunch of Freys, and so I could really see her easily fulfilling that role, being the vengeful one that's going to go ahead and go all out and get revenge for House Stark, regardless of who they hurt, all because they hate. So that'll pretty much be the all we're going to do with that as far as the predictions go or analysis. What I really want to talk about is the books a bit and why they may never come out, in my opinion, or my theory that if they do come out, it's going to be a significantly different story than George R. R. Martin initially intended to tell. My first encounter with Game of Thrones was back in the late 90s. A friend of mine let me stay on their couch in college, and his name is Steve, and he was really into Game of Thrones, and I can remember he was just anticipating, just like salivating for Storm of Swords to come out. I didn't actually read any of the series until I had already watched Game of Thrones a couple of seasons, and I didn't start reading it until 2011. But regardless, it's known that George R. R. Martin is someone who doesn't really listen to fan theories and doesn't read like fan websites or anything, because he's afraid that if he were to read somebody's theory that is correct, it might prompt him to change a storyline, which he doesn't want to do. However, Game of Thrones was initially, or A Song of Ice and Fire, and that's the series of the books, that's what it's called, was initially only going to be 3 books. But I guess he came to the conclusion that it was going to need to be longer than 3 books, so we have what we have now, which is I think going to be 7 books when it's all said and done. Now, the reason I think he may never finish the series, or more than likely that the release that will be put out eventually will be something that is significantly different from the story that he initially wanted to tell, is because of how many of the reveals there have been during the last couple of seasons on Game of Thrones. The ones in particular that come to mind would have been the Tower of Joy. If you've read the books, and I'll link to a audiobook version of it, the reveal of the Tower of Joy, or the hinting of the Tower of Joy, is so much better in the book. It happens during Ned Stark's fever dream, and the way it's described is just far superior to what you receive on the screen. I imagine there'll be something this season or something next season that will solidify the parentage of Jon Snow as being a Targaryen bastard and not being a Stark bastard. Now, a lot of these reveals or these plot twists have been 20 years in the making. That thing with the Tower of Joy, 20 years in the making. Jon Snow being a Targaryen, 20 years in the making there. Same thing with Hodor. That whole hold the door sequence and whole hold the door twist and plot reveal. That's something George R. R. Martin has been planning since 1996. So what kind of mindfuck does that got to be to that your biggest plot twists are being revealed before before you've published them? I mean, I really have to wonder what that does to an author, what that does to a content creator, to put that much work, that much that much time and energy, to put that much of yourself into your creation, into your craft. And I understand that he signed on for it and he signed the rights away and stuff, but to have like your big reveals like that just be shown in a completely different medium, we're probably, I don't know, it may make him less motivated to complete the story. And that's my main, I guess the main thesis or whatever, the main gist of my theory is that the showrunners have delayed the creations of the book. I mean, that's just a fact in itself, and it's not the showrunner's fault, but just George R. R. Martin, the amount of time he's put into writing episodes and writing supplemental material like the Worlds of Ice and Fire and all that other stuff, as time and energy he could have directed into completing the books, but he wanted to do these other things, and that makes money too. That's that's his prerogative. But I just have to wonder if the way they've like revealed things like with Jon's parentage and with him being a Targaryen, or with the whole hold the door twist, whether the way those are revealed, possibly push the book back. And given the fact that George R. R. Martin has already expanded the books from being 3 books to 7 books, it's almost assured that the story that he initially wanted to tell with A Song of Ice and Fire is not going to be the same story that we are going to read in the completed series of books. It's definitely not going to be the story that we see on the television program. And that's why I encourage everybody, all y'all, to read the books. They are so much better, and they are kind of tedious, but they are way better. If you're not into the whole reading thing, I encourage you to check out the audiobooks read by Roy Dotrice. That's the excerpt that'll be linked to is read by him, and it's just fabulous. Now we're going to go ahead and talk about Donald Trump again. Sort of Donald Trump. We're getting out of Syria, so that's definitely a good look. He should be patted on the back for that. We should not be in Syria, in my opinion. We shouldn't be meddling in other countries' civil wars. It's not a good look. It's not our place to try and try and flip power. It's not our place to try and flip power structures in other countries. I get that, I get it. Assad's a maniac, and Assad is this and that, and he's a bad person. And well, I'm not going to argue with you on that point because I may agree. The point is that we should not be trying to fight a civil war against him, given that we are not Syrian. While I do agree that it is a very tragic situation, it is not one that I think that we should be involved in militarily, at least in my opinion. And what really flips my wig about this, or boggles my mind, is that it wasn't a good idea when Obama proposed putting the red line in the sand, and we're gonna go take care of these fools if they do any more chemical attacks on civilians, blah blah blah. It wasn't a good idea then, and now that it is being withdrawn, and we're taking our troops out of there, or taking our covert operators out of there. The way the people on the left and in the media are just up in arms about this, and basically portraying it as being a move that is being dictated by Moscow and being dictated by Vladimir Putin. And my problem with that is just because Vladimir Putin thinks it's a good idea doesn't mean it's a bad idea. We should not be over there. And the less war, in my opinion, the better. And I don't know, it just seems like there are just so many armchair generals that are just wanting to press the button and send people to go fight battles that they themselves are not willing to go fight in. And the other thing on the Trump tip is his whole feud with Robert Mueller, or Mueller, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm not sure what his position is. I'll have to research it if he's like the special counsel or if he's like a special prosecutor. I'm not sure. But just the way Trump has his own red line in the sand, and his red line in the sand is don't look at my money. And Mueller's like the first thing he says as we're going to start looking at your money, and pretty much daring Trump to fire him. And I'm sure there will be an impeachment in the future. Whether it's going to be 2 months from now or 2 years from now, I'm not sure. I know that Watergate took about 2 years to come to full fruition. And the thing about the whole impeachment thing with Robert Mueller is you have to look at the lawyers who are being brought in as counsel for Robert Mueller. These are all very, very experienced lawyers who probably on the low side bring home a couple of $1 million per year. And they are all taking very significant pay cuts to go and work for Robert Mueller, and they're not doing it because they hate Trump. They're not doing it because they hate Republicans. Many of these guys are Republicans, and they've been card-carrying members of the party for years and years and years. And these are all individuals who would be considered captains of their industry. And in my opinion, the reason they're all taking such significant pay cuts to go and work for Robert Mueller is because they smell blood in the water, and they see their chance at legacy. They see their chance to go ahead and create a name for themselves and their family name as being people who are associated with the impeachment of a United States president. And, it's, Woodward and Bernstein, like the impeachment of Nixon happened 50 years ago, and they're still their names are still household names. And I think that when you look at the team that's trying to take Trump down, these are all guys who are smart guys, and they wouldn't be doing it if they thought there was a chance Trump wasn't going to go down. And that's why I think there probably will be an impeachment, but it may take a little bit longer, just because things are a little grayer than they were in the 70s. Anyway, thanks for checking out. This is The Real Life. Hope you have a great weekend and afternoon, evening. See you soon.